Colton's point of view.
The morning sun slanted low through the windshield, streaking the dashboard in pale gold. I drove on autopilot, the hum of the engine beneath me doing nothing to quiet the storm in my head. Her message still burned on my phone where it lay in the console, every word etched into me like a blade. Vivienne Laurent, I know about your surrogate, about Ava, and it isn't your sister's child, Colton. Don't make me prove it. My jaw tightened until it hurt. I shouldn't have left Ava so soon, not after the night we had. Not after the way her eyes looked at me when I said, "Marry me." But I had no choice. Not when Vivienne dared to drag Ava and the baby into her games. I raked a hand through my hair, pressing harder on the gas. How the hell did she even know about Ava? No one outside the household in my closest circle should have had a clue. And yet she knew. Enough to throw that dagger at me without hesitation. How the hell had she found out? Vivienne Laurent wasn't just a problem, she was a threat. I texted back only 2 words. "Me, where are you?" The reply came almost instantly. "Vivienne, come get me, Colton, let's talk face to face." My fingers curled tight around the steering wheel. A trap. I knew it, but Vivienne was never a woman you ignored. Not when she was already bold enough to stir headlines, not when she could unravel everything with a single whisper. The streets blurred past as I turned in the direction she sent me. When I pulled up, there she was, waiting deliberately where the light could catch her, framed by marble pillars like she was stepping out of a damn photo shoot. She was dressed in white, not just any white, but a wedding gown. Every shimmering bead reflecting sunlight like a mockery. A statement, a declaration. When she slid into my car, her perfume invaded the space, sweet and sharp. She smiled, slow, predatory, and slipped her hand deliberately into mine as though it belonged there. The engine roared under my hands, every muscle in my body coiled tight as I pressed harder on the accelerator. The city blurred into streaks of color, but I barely saw any of it. Every fiber in me ached with rage. This woman, this parasite, was in my car, threatening everything I had built, everything I wanted. "Colton." Vivienne's voice was sharp, laced with a fake calm. "Slow down." I didn't. My grip only tightened, knuckles white on the wheel. The speedometer climbed. "Well then," she said with a chuckle that twisted like glass in my ears, "if we both die, it'll make good news. Colton Sinclair and his fiancée die in a car crash." The words snapped something in me. I gritted my teeth so hard my jaw ached, then slammed my foot on the brakes. The tires screeched, her body lurched forward, then smacked back into the seat with a gasp. I turned on her, voice sharp, raw. "What the hell is your real intention, Vivienne? Who sent you? Was it my rivals? I know you've been paid to—" "No." She cut me off smoothly, her painted lips curving into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You're wrong about that. No one sent me. I came on my own." "Why, though?" For the first time, she fell silent, a beat, then another. Her gaze flickered, calculating, and then she dropped the grenade. "Let's get married now, or else I can tell the media about your surrogate carrying a child that isn't your family's." The fury in me detonated, hot and vicious, my vision tunneled. "You dare," I spat, the word tearing out of me. But she didn't give me the chance to unleash the rest. "You don't want to know what the world will think, do you? About Colton Sinclair, tricking an innocent woman, your own employee, into carrying a child with no father, or maybe—" She tilted her head, her eyes gleaming with poison. "Do you know who the father really is?" My blood roared in my ears, fury clawed through me, violent and merciless. But before I could strike back, she leaned closer, her voice dropping into a silken trap. "As you can see, I'm ready." She gestured at her gown with a slow, deliberate sweep of her hand. "I'll be waiting for you at the Valeria estate. That's where we're getting married." Then she opened the door with infuriating grace, stepped out and leaned down to my window. Her smile was all venom. "Don't make our guests wait, Colton." And with that she walked away, her phone already pressed to her ear as she called her driver, leaving the scent of her perfume and her threats thick in my car. I slammed my palm against the steering wheel, a curse ripping from my throat. My chest heaved as I shoved the car back into gear and tore down the road, my mind running wild with fury and dread. Finally, I snatched my phone and dialed. The line clicked. "Jonathan," I barked, my voice rough. "Did you find anything?" A pause, then Jonathan's voice came low and grim. "Not full information yet, but you were right. Someone is behind Vivian." "Who's behind her?" I demanded, my knuckles whitening on the wheel. The line went silent, too silent. Then Jonathan's voice came rough, hesitant. "You won't believe this, sir, but it's actually Nathan. And from what I see," his voice dropped lower, "he's been helped by his father to get Vivian to do that job." My brows furrowed so hard they ached. "Are you sure about this?" "I am, Mr. Sinclair," Jonathan said firmly. I double-checked. A sharp curse left my mouth as I clenched my teeth. "Have you found out where Nathan is? You know I'm still looking for him." Jonathan exhaled, the sound strained. "We still have a hard time locating him. His father bribed the whole airport staff, the employees, everyone. There's no access to where he went." I shut my eyes for a moment, fury clawing at my ribs. "Jonathan, do all the necessary, even if it means offering $1 million, do it. I believe no one was paid that much money. Do it and get back to me immediately." "Yes, sir," Jonathan replied. "I'll make sure of it." The call clicked dead. I slammed the phone down onto the passenger seat and pulled the car over, tires screeching as I parked beside the road. My chest heaved, rage and confusion tangled in a knot I couldn't unravel. Why would the governor get involved in this? Nathan, I understood. Ava's ex-boyfriend, bitter, reckless, a snake. But his father. Why would a man of that stature dig so deep to the point of hiring Vivian to torment me, to gnaw at my sanity? What were their real intentions in hiring Vivian? What were they after? My jaw tightened as another thought stabbed through me. How the hell did they know about Ava's surrogacy, and that the child wasn't my sister's? The realization hit like a blade. The doctors. They were the only ones who knew about their actions, about the surrogacy and the truth behind it. No one else. My hand shot to the ignition. The engine roared back to life, a beast eager to run. I gripped the wheel, eyes narrowing with a new fire burning inside me. If the doctors were involved, then they were the leak. And if that was true, I slammed the gear shift and drove, the tires spitting gravel as I sped off. My direction was clear now. The prison. The very place I had them locked up. And this time I wouldn't leave until I had every answer. The moment I stepped into that cold, sterile hallway, the guard standing at the end of the corridor stiffened. One look at my face and he opened the heavy iron door without asking questions. The sharp scent of disinfectant burned in my nose as I walked in, my footsteps echoing against the concrete. On the other side of the glass, the doctor, once in pristine white coats, now sat in orange prison scrubs, hands cuffed to the table, head bowed like a man awaiting execution. "Leave us," I told the guard. "Mr. Sinclair, leave." A brief pause, then the guard backed out, the door shutting with a dull thud behind him. I took a slow step forward, each movement controlled even as rage simmered just beneath my skin. The doctor lifted his head and I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. He should be afraid. "You've been quiet for too long," I said calmly, leaning forward on the steel table. "But today I'm not leaving this room without answers." He swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. Mr. Sinclair, I slammed my hand against the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Don't test me, I growled, voice low and lethal. You think because you're behind bars you're safe? I own this building more than the people who built it. His breath hitched. I leaned closer, my face inches from his. Talk. Who paid you? Who told you to leak information about the surrogacy? And don't bother lying, I already know it's connected to Nathan and his father. His eyes darted nervously, his composure crumbling like wet paper. They came to me weeks ago, he whispered, shaking. The governor's men said they knew about the surrogacy. They wanted everything, the embryo file, the procedure notes, even the nurse who assisted. Why? My voice was cold steel. They wanted proof, he said quickly. Proof that the baby wasn't your sister's, and they offered a lot of money, more than I've ever seen in my life. I slammed my fist on the table so hard the cuffs rattled. You sold confidential information to them for money? His eyes filled with terror. They said if I didn't, they'd ruin me, ruin my family. I had no choice. I swear to you, I didn't know they'd bring Vivian into this. I didn't know they'd... I leaned back slowly, exhaling through my nose, fury burning through every nerve. You knew enough. The doctor's voice broke into a trembling whisper. The governor said he'd use the information to destroy your image, to force you into a corner. Vivian was the final piece. She was supposed to trap you, corner you into doing exactly what they want. And what? I asked, my tone cutting like ice. Do they want from me? I have no idea, Mr. Sinclair. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to a single point. Nathan, his father, Vivian. I leaned down until my mouth was level with the trembling doctor's ear. Pray they don't touch her, I whispered, my voice quiet and lethal. Because if they do, no cage in this country will protect any of you. He flinched, and I meant every word. I straightened, composed but boiling inside, and turned toward the door. My mind was no longer clouded, it was sharp, deadly focused. They'd made their move. Now it was my turn. The sun was already sinking lower when I walked out of that prison. The world outside was loud, cars honking, people bustling, but inside me there was only one thing. War. Vivian thought she had me cornered. Nathan and his father thought I'd break under pressure, but they had no idea who they were playing with. I sat behind the wheel, hands gripping the steering tight enough to turn my knuckles bone white. Her ultimatum replayed in my head on a loop. Meet me at the venue. Don't keep our guests waiting. She wanted a wedding. She wanted power. But she had no idea she'd walked straight into a trap. I pulled out my phone and called Jonathan again. He picked up on the first ring. Sir? Change of plans, I said evenly, though inside every nerve felt wired tight. I'll go through with it. Jonathan sucked in a sharp breath. You're marrying Vivian? I'm making her think I am, I corrected, my tone like steel. If this is the game she wants to play, then I'll be the one controlling the board. I need her close. Close enough to make a mistake. She's dangerous, Colton, he warned quietly. A humorless laugh left my throat. So am I. I hung up before he could protest further. The so-called wedding venue was a luxury estate outside the city, draped in expensive silk and filled with reporters pretending not to be reporters. Everything about it was meticulously staged. Flowers arranged in perfection, chandeliers reflecting soft light, champagne flutes lined like soldiers on silver trays. And there she was. Vivienne Laurent. Dressed in ivory silk and lace, a crown of crystals catching the dying sun. She looked like something carved out of a magazine, elegant, breathtaking, and utterly poisonous. Her lips curved into a victorious smile the moment she saw me walk in. I knew you'd come." I didn't give her the satisfaction of answering. My jaw was tight, my movements precise. I let the photographers capture what they thought was a powerful couple walking side by side, while in reality every step I took was laced with silent calculation. The officiant was waiting, guests murmuring. It wasn't a legal ceremony, she didn't have the papers. And that was exactly how I wanted it. As she slipped her hand through my arm, she whispered, "You're making the right choice, Colton." I leaned down, my lips brushing her ear, but my words as cold as ice. "Don't ever think I'm the one being played here." The ceremony went on, an exchange of vows for the cameras, a smile for the guests, a kiss that never reached my soul. But behind those empty gestures, my team was already working. Lawyers, security, press liaisons. Every angle of this sham was under my control. When it ended, we left in my car, together. The ride back to my mansion was quiet. Vivienne crossed her legs, wearing that same smug smile like a crown. She believed she'd won. But what she didn't know was that while she was busy celebrating a fake wedding, I was digging my claws into the truth. As we approached the mansion gates, my guards opened them without hesitation. She tilted her head, studying me. "You really don't look like a man who just got married." "I'm not," I said flatly. Her smile faltered for the briefest second. "Good. This wasn't love. This wasn't a marriage. This was infiltration. I brought her back with me because I wanted her close. I needed to know every secret Nathan and his father had tied to her. And if I had to sleep next to the enemy to protect Ava and the child inside her stomach, then I would do it without blinking. But what I didn't expect was how much it would sting when I actually saw the look on her face. The dinner I'd promised her flashed in my head like a taunting reminder. I hadn't even made the reservation. I'd gotten caught up in this mess with Vivienne, and the truth was, my mind hadn't been on candlelight or soft smiles. It had been at war. Still, that didn't make it hurt any less when I saw her standing at the entrance of the mansion. Her hand rested unconsciously on her belly, her eyes full of a mixture of disbelief and something that twisted like a blade in my chest. Vivienne's arm slipped through mine like a damn snake as she tilted her head and smirked. "Oh, darling," she purred, her voice sugar-coated poison. "Is this the surrogate?" The world around me went still. Ava froze, shock spreading across her delicate features like a shadow. Her lips parted, but she said nothing. Instead, she turned around without a word and walked away, her steps quick but painfully controlled, like someone refusing to let anyone see the pieces breaking inside them. My jaw clenched. I didn't even have time to stop her, not with Vivienne glued to my side like a parasite. I pushed the door open and let Vivienne walk inside ahead of me. She trailed her fingers along the polished railing as she looked around like she owned the damn place. "I love your house," she said with a smug little laugh. "But it's so empty, like it misses something to be called a home." I turned to her slowly, every muscle in my body tightening. "Ava isn't a surrogate as you know she is," I said, my voice low, sharp, and deadly. "She's my fiancée, actually." Vivienne scoffed immediately, rolling her eyes with a smirk that told me she thought she had the upper hand. "Please, Colton, I know a lie when I hear one. Your fiancé. How convenient. Do you expect me to believe that after everything?" I stepped closer, letting my expression turn cold. "Whether you believe it or not isn't my problem," I said evenly. "But I'll make one thing clear, Vivienne. In this house, you'll respect her. She's not what you think she is, and I won't tolerate you talking about her like that again." For the first time since she stepped into my home, the smugness in her face faltered just slightly. But of course she tried to play her game again. Then tell me something, Colton, she said softly, tilting her head. Why would you marry me then? And how is she your fiancé when everyone knows she was your sister's surrogate? And above all, without the world knowing. I stared at her, my jaw tightening. That, I said, voice low and dangerous, is my private life, and it will stay that way. Now that you know, I'm sure you'll be eager to tell the world. Go ahead, but remember, Vivian, if you start a war with me, you'll lose it. She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her a chance to respond. And about marrying you, I continued, don't flatter yourself. This, I gestured between us, isn't about love or a fairy tale. It's about strategy. You'll play your part and I'll play mine. But don't ever mistake this for something it's not. Then I turned my head slightly. Agnes, I called, my tone clipped. The housekeeper appeared almost immediately, her gaze flicking from me to Vivian with thinly veiled dislike. Show Miss Vivian to the guest room, I instructed. Yes, Mr. Colton, Agnes said quietly. Vivian narrowed her eyes at me as if she expected me to follow her, but I didn't. I turned my back on her without a second glance and headed down the hall. I needed distance. I needed to think. But most of all, I needed to figure out how to fix the way Ava had looked at me, like I'd just ripped her heart in two. I turned toward the staircase, my steps slow and heavy, each one carrying the weight of everything I should have done differently. Ava's room was at the end of the hall, close enough to reach in less than a minute. Yet that short walk felt like a battlefield. When I reached her door, I didn't knock. I just stood there. My fingers hovered over the polished wood, my chest tight. What was I even supposed to say? That I was sorry, that none of this was what it looked like. Would she even believe me? I could already imagine what she must be thinking of me right now. A scamberg, a manipulator, a two-timer who took advantage of her and walked down the aisle with another woman the next. I felt like absolute shit, and honestly, I deserved every damn part of it. I lowered my hand and stepped back slightly, deciding maybe it was better to give her space, let her process, cool down. I could explain later, when the storm inside her eyes had softened. I turned ready to head to my study when the door creaked open. My heart slammed hard against my ribs. She stood there in the doorway, her eyes soft but unreadable, her hair a little messy from frustration and restlessness. She didn't say a word. Instead, she opened the door wider and tilted her head slightly, silently telling me to come in. I walked in slowly, like stepping into sacred ground, and she closed the door behind me quietly. The soft click of the latch echoed louder than it should have. She walked toward me with steady, careful steps. When she finally stopped in front of me, her voice was quiet but clear. "I've heard what you said," she murmured. For a second, I forgot how to breathe, my chest tightened, my throat dry. She lifted her gaze, meeting mine. "About what you told Vivian," she continued, her tone calm but layered with emotions she wasn't showing. "That I'm your fiancé, and not your sister's surrogate." I exhaled slowly. Oh. It was all I could manage in that moment, because nothing I could say would carry the weight of how I felt. She looked down briefly before meeting my eyes again. "I was mad," she admitted quietly. "When I saw you with her, in a wedding dress, God, Colton, I was furious, but now—" She paused, swallowing hard. "Whatever reason you had that made you marry her, I'll respect it, and I'll wait until it comes to an end." Her voice was steady, but it carried something that sliced straight through me. Trust wrapped in quiet pain, and I didn't deserve that. Not from her, not after what she'd seen. My chest ached as I looked at her, realizing just how much she believed in me, even after everything, and I knew then I couldn't afford to let her down. Not now, not ever. I stared at her for a long beat, the world narrowing to the steady rise and fall of her chest under my hand. Then almost without thinking, I let it out. "Can I have a hug, if you don't mind?" She nodded, small and tentative, and stepped closer until her arms wrapped around me. The contact was simple and holy all at once. Warm fabric against my shirt, the tiny, steady thrum of life beneath her palm. I buried my face in the top of her head and inhaled, the faint scent of shampoo and lemon grounding me. "Thank you," I whispered into her hair, "for trusting me." She stayed against me, and I felt the tremor of exhaustion in my body ease a degree. "Just know I've been ambushed with a lot," I told her, voice raw. "But I will get through it. I'll make every last one of them pay." The word pay tasted like steel on my tongue. The thought of vengeance snapped through me in a clean, cold line. And then, beneath the fury and the plans, a softer, sharper question nudged at the edge of my restraint. Should I tell her the truth about the child she was carrying? The truth was ugly and complicated, and telling it would change everything between us. I almost reached for it, almost opened my mouth. She pulled back before I could speak, catching me off guard. Her eyes were glossy and earnest, and when she spoke my name, it was small. "Tomorrow is my doctor's appointment." Something in my chest dropped and then exploded. "The day to know the gender," she added quietly, as if letting me into a private ritual. "Your sister's child, Her voice frayed. "Would you come with me? In your sister's place, I'm sure. Wherever she is, she'd want to know." My heart slammed like a fist against ribs that still felt raw. It ached in a way that had nothing to do with strategy or revenge. It was a simple ache, the want to be there for her, to stand where family should stand. She blinked, words tumbling forward, then retreating. "I'm sorry for throwing it at you. It's okay if you can't make it." Her shoulders dipped as if she'd already rehearsed disappointment. "No." I cut the doubt off before it could take shape. My voice was immediate, fierce with certainty. "I will come. I'll take you myself." She looked at me then, something like relief and something else, hope, flickering through her features. I could see the tiny lines of fear at the corners of her mouth, the way she steadied herself by gripping the edge of the bed. "Good," I said, because the word settled something in me. "I'll be there." And I meant it. Let's go together and find out what my sister will have.
Ava's point of view.
The sunlight brushed against my face like soft fingers, coaxing me out of a sleep so warm and heavy I didn't want to let it go. It was the first time in a long time I'd slept this peacefully. No tossing, no restless thoughts, just the steady rhythm of his breathing beside me, the weight of his arm curled protectively around my waist through the night. We hadn't done anything, just lay there, cuddled, and somehow that had been enough to make me feel safe, to make the world, even with all its chaos, feel a little less heavy. I rolled onto my side, half expecting to find him still there, but the space beside me was empty, the sheets warm but abandoned. A faint sound carried through the quiet room, the shower running in his bathroom. A soft flutter sparked in my chest as I sat up, brushing hair from my face. I'm really waking up in his bed, in his room, because he'd insisted. "If Vivian's going to doubt what I said about you being my fiancé," he told me last night, "then she'll have to doubt seeing you here too." I sighed, slipping my feet off the edge of the bed. Today was a new day, a day Vivian was still very much in this house, and the day I'd find out the gender of the baby I was carrying. My hand instinctively went to my stomach. The baby. For a moment, my heart gave a slow, nervous beat. Living in the same house with Vivian wasn't going to be easy. I didn't know her personally, but last night, when she'd looked at me with that smug little smile like she owned everything, was enough for me to know she'd be a thorn in my shoe. The bathroom door opened, pulling me out of my thoughts. Colton stepped out, a white towel wrapped low around his waist, another one in his hand as he rubbed it through his damp hair. Water glistened on his chest, his skin smelling faintly of something warm and clean. Whatever shampoo or soap he used, it was divine. It wrapped around the room and settled into my lungs like an addiction. "Good morning," he said, voice still husky from sleep. "Good morning," I replied, my voice a little breathier than I intended. I moved to slip past him and give him privacy to get dressed, but his hand shot out lightly, catching my wrist. "Where do you think you're going without me?" I blinked up at him. "In my room," I said, a small laugh escaping. "To take a quick shower?" He tilted his head, a slow, teasing smile curving on his lips. "What happened to this one?" he asked, nodding toward the bathroom behind him. My brows lifted. "Do I have to share the bathroom too?" "Yes, Mom." His voice held that warm, deep certainty. "From now on, we share everything." He leaned slightly closer, a grin tugging at the corner of his mouth. "And you can change into my shirts as well." Heat shot straight to my cheeks. "Colton." He didn't move, just stood there, perfectly at ease while I burned under his gaze. I straightened my spine, brushing past the embarrassment, and lifted my chin. I took a small step forward, but he was still right there in the doorway, big, solid, and very aware of what he was doing. I looked up at him, arching a brow. "Can I pass?" I asked, trying to sound firm, even though my pulse was racing like mad. His eyes danced with quiet amusement as he looked down at me, the warm bathroom steam curling between us. The corners of his mouth twitched. He wasn't planning on making it easy. Colton didn't budge. His mouth tilted into that lazy, arrogant smile that both irritated me and made my knees feel a little too soft. "Pass?" he repeated slowly, his voice dropping an octave that curled around me like a touch. "You're going to have to say please if you want me to move." I narrowed my eyes at him, but my lips betrayed me, twitching at the corners. "Colton," I warned. He crossed his arms over his bare chest, muscles shifting beneath damp skin, clearly enjoying every second of this. "I'm listening," he murmured, leaning just a fraction closer, his breath ghosting over my cheek. "Say it nicely, sweetheart." Heat shot straight to my face, and I could practically feel the blush spreading down my neck. This man, this infuriating, beautiful man. I bit the inside of my cheek, refusing to give him the satisfaction. "You're impossible," I muttered under my breath. He chuckled, a low, warm sound that slid right through me. "And yet," his eyes sparkled with mischief, "you're still standing there blushing like you want me to kiss you." "Colton?" I gasped, my face burning even hotter now. He laughed softly, finally pushing off the doorframe. All right, I'll behave," he said, stepping to the side with a flourish of his hand like he was some kind of gentleman. "Your royal bathroom awaits, Mom." I huffed, brushing past him, but he bent his head down close enough to whisper near my ear, "But I still like watching you blush." My entire body went warm at that, and I didn't trust my voice enough to say anything back. I just hurried into the bathroom, closing the door behind me a little harder than necessary. Through the door, I could hear his soft laugh echoing in the room, rich, warm, and way too dangerous for my heart. As the warm water began to cascade over me a few seconds later, I pressed my hands to my flushed cheeks and whispered to myself, "Get a grip, Ava." But my heart was still hammering, and deep down I already knew, teasing me like this was just the beginning of the day, a day that would be filled with Vivian, complications, and a truth that could shake everything between us. I sighed, turned off the water, and grabbed a towel. After drying off quickly, I wrapped myself in Colton's shirt that hung on the back of the door. It was far too big for me, falling to mid-thigh, but it smelled like him, clean and masculine. The scent alone made my stomach flutter. When I stepped out, he was standing near the bed, already dressed in a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, a watch glinting on his wrist. His hair was slightly damp, pushed back in that effortless way of his. For a moment, I just stared. He turned, catching me in the act, and the corner of his mouth curved up. "Well, well," he drawled, voice low. "You wear my shirt better than I do." My blush came back with full force. "Stop it," I muttered, padding across the room barefoot. He took a few steps toward me, close enough that I could smell his aftershave, crisp and intoxicating. "I wasn't kidding about sharing everything," he teased softly, his voice brushing against my skin like velvet. Then a knock on the door shattered the moment. "Mr. Colton?" Margaret's voice came softly from the hallway. "Breakfast is ready." Colton exhaled slowly and straightened his cuffs like he'd just put his armor back on. "We should go," he said, stepping toward the door. But before he opened it, he glanced back at me. "Wear the shirt," he said quietly, the ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "I like it on you." I watched him walk out, my pulse still unsteady. I pressed a hand to my chest, willing my racing heart to calm. Whatever happens, I told myself silently, I have to stay strong. For the baby, for me, for the confusing, dangerous feelings I was starting to have for a man who was fighting shadows I couldn't fully see yet. The moment we stepped out of the room together, Margaret's warm eyes landed on us. She smiled softly, like she knew something but chose to keep it tucked away. "Morning," she greeted. "Morning," I replied, my cheeks still faintly warm from earlier. Colton just gave her a nod, one hand slipping into his pocket as we descended the staircase side by side. The moment we entered the dining area, the air thickened. Vivian was already seated at the table, dressed like she'd just stepped out of a magazine cover, an elegant cream silk robe cinched at the waist, her blonde hair cascading in soft curls, not a strand out of place. She crossed one flawless leg over the other and lifted her gaze to us. Her eyes, cold, assessing, swept over me slowly from head to toe, lingering on the oversized shirt I wore. I stiffened under her scrutiny, but she said nothing. Instead, she casually picked up a piece of toast, spread butter over it with deliberate grace, and bit into it like she owned the place. Colton gestured for me to sit, and Margaret set down plates in front of us. I focused on my breakfast, determined not to give Vivian the satisfaction of seeing me uncomfortable. Then her voice, smooth and honeyed with venom beneath, sliced through the air. "So, my dear husband." The word husband hit me like a punch to the chest. I sucked in a sharp breath, choking on an olive I hadn't even fully swallowed. My hand flew to my throat as I coughed. "Ava!" Margaret rushed forward, quickly handing me a glass of water. I gulped it down, my eyes stinging slightly as the burning eased. "Thank you," I whispered, setting the glass down with trembling fingers. Vivian's lips curved. Not quite a smile, more like a cat playing with its prey. "What is our plan as newlyweds?" The fork froze halfway to my mouth. The way she said "our" made me want to throw the plate across the room. She tilted her head lightly, as if she hadn't just dropped a bomb at the breakfast table. "Anyway," she continued, "besides that, I've made a reservation with my people and the reporters today. The world has questions, and I wouldn't want to be the one left without answers." I felt Colton's body stiffen next to me before he calmly set his fork down and looked at her with the kind of quiet authority that could silence an entire room. "Since you made that plan without consulting me," he said evenly, "it would be better if you go alone, because today—" He shifted slightly, his voice hardening just enough to leave no room for argument. "I already have plans with my woman." My breath hitched. Vivian's smile faltered just for a fraction of a second, enough for me to catch it, but she quickly recovered. Her eyes slid toward me, sharp as a blade, before curving her lips into something sweet and poisonous. "Oh," she purred softly, leaning back in her chair. "Of course, darling." Her gaze burned into me, like she was silently promising that whatever game she was playing had only just begun. I furrowed my brows, uneasy. Whatever that bitch's deal was, I knew it wasn't good, and something told me she didn't plan to lose. After breakfast, everything moved in a blur. I retreated upstairs to change out of Colton's shirt and into something more presentable for the hospital visit. My hands shook slightly as I buttoned the soft cream blouse, tucking it into my jeans. It wasn't just nerves, it was everything. Vivian sitting downstairs like she owned the house, the way Colton had called me my woman without blinking, and the weight of today's appointment. By the time I returned to the foyer, Colton was already waiting by the door, dressed in a dark tailored jacket over a crisp shirt, one hand tucked into his pocket. He looked effortlessly composed. Too composed. His eyes met mine for a beat longer than usual before he gave me a small nod. Ready? I swallowed. Yeah. We didn't talk much on the drive. The silence between us wasn't cold, but heavy, like a secret resting on both our shoulders. Vivienne didn't appear when we left. Not that I minded. I needed this morning free from her smug presence. The hospital wasn't far. The October air was cool, the city awake and bustling, but everything felt distant, like my mind was wrapped in a fog. The moment we turned into the hospital's driveway, something shifted. Colton's jaw tightened, his grip on the steering wheel stiffening slightly. I followed his line of sight, and my stomach dropped. They came out of nowhere. A wall of reporters swarmed around the hospital entrance like a pack of wolves that had scented blood. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward, dozens of voices collided into a chaotic roar. Colton parked, and before I could fully process, they were already surrounding the car. "Colton! Colton Sinclair, is it true? About your late sister's surrogate carrying a child that isn't hers? What do you have to say about the doctors swapping embryos? Who's the father of the baby? What about your wedding to Vivienne Laurent?" The words blurred together, but that one line cut through everything like a blade. Swapping embryos. My breath caught in my throat. What? For a heartbeat, it felt like the world tilted. The noise around me dimmed, fading into a distant buzz, as if someone had turned down the volume on reality. My fingers went numb, clutching my bag so tightly my knuckles burned white. Swapped embryos? They had said doctors. They had said surrogate. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might split my chest. I slowly turned to Colton, searching his face through the chaos. He wasn't surprised, not like me. His jaw was clenched, his eyes dark and unreadable, like someone who already knew. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. He knew. The voices outside still echoed in my head like a broken record. Swapped embryos. Carrying a child that isn't hers. Those words didn't just sink in, they tore through me, unraveling everything I thought I knew. My heart pounded so hard it almost hurt. For a second, I couldn't feel my legs, couldn't hear anything but the ringing in my ears. I didn't even realize Colton had called my name until his voice cut through the noise. "Ava!" I blinked slowly, like coming out of a trance. He was standing there, eyes fixed on me with that mix of worry and something else, something heavy. I didn't hear what he'd said before, but the look on his face was enough to drag me back into the moment. The reporters were already being dragged away by security. Cameras still flashed in the distance, but everything felt far, distant, muffled, like I was underwater. Colton opened my door and held out his hand. I hesitated for a second, then took it because it was the only solid thing around me. The warmth of his palm was steady, grounding, but it didn't stop the storm in my chest. I followed him into the hospital, silent. I didn't say a word, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't trust my voice. Whose child was I carrying? Why didn't I know about it? Was it true? By the time we got to the examination room, I was numb. The doctor's voice sounded distant, like she was speaking from the other end of a tunnel. She asked if I was eating well, sleeping fine, if I'd felt any kicks. I nodded faintly, or gave half-hearted hums. I wasn't really there. My body was. My mind wasn't. When the cool gel touched my stomach, I didn't even flinch. Usually I'd smile when I heard the soft whoosh of the heartbeat echo through the room, but this time, nothing. My chest was too tight, my thoughts too loud. I stared at the ceiling, not the monitor. I didn't care if it was a boy or a girl right now. All I wanted was answers. Answers to questions I never imagined I'd have to ask. My fingers dug into the sides of the bed. Please let this not be true. Please let it be a lie. But deep down, something twisted inside me. A quiet, cold fear I couldn't ignore. The sound of the machine faded, replaced by the soft click of buttons as the doctor cleaned the probe. A small smile touched her lips. "Congratulations, Mr. Sinclair," she said warmly. "You're having a baby boy." Colton let out a breath, a soft thank you slipping past his lips. His voice was calm, but I could see the subtle movement of his jaw, tight, controlled. He asked the doctor a few questions about the baby's health, development, and the next appointment. I sat there, hands resting on my stomach, feeling completely detached from the moment. A boy. We should have been happy, but instead, my chest felt hollow. After setting the next appointment, we walked out of the hospital in silence. The air outside felt heavy, pressing down on me with each step. We got into the car, me in the passenger seat, Colton behind the wheel. But neither of us started the engine. The quiet between us wasn't peaceful. It was sharp, tense, filled with the echo of questions neither of us wanted to ask first. Finally, Colton turned to me, his hands gripping the steering wheel as if to anchor himself. "I don't know where those reporters came from," he said carefully, his voice low and measured. "But I swear to you, Ava, I didn't—" "It was Vivian," I cut in flatly. My voice didn't even tremble. It came out cold, sure. "She sent them, I'm sure of it. And honestly—" I exhaled shakily, looking down at my hands. "I don't even care about that right now." I turned to look at him fully. "What they said out there. You didn't look surprised, Colton." His knuckles whitened against the steering wheel. He didn't speak. "Is it true?" I asked again, softer this time. The silence that followed was deafening, and that silence told me everything I needed to know. A wave of cold washed through me. My throat tightened painfully as I swallowed down the panic threatening to rise. "So, this child isn't related to you," I whispered, my voice cracking slightly. "Then, whose child am I carrying, Colton? And why didn't you tell me?" He finally met my eyes. There was no running from it now. "Because I was still looking into it," he said slowly, his voice low but firm. "I didn't want to come to you with half the truth. I needed answers first, Ava. My sister was being lied to." He dragged a hand over his face, frustration bleeding into his features. "The embryo wasn't hers, and I swear to you, I will find out who's behind this." I sat there, feeling the world tilt just a little, my hand unconsciously moving to my belly. A baby boy, a baby who wasn't his, a baby who wasn't hers either. And I was in the middle of it all. The shrill ring of Colton's phone snapped through the heavy silence like a blade. He exhaled slowly, reaching into his pocket. But the moment his eyes landed on the screen, the tension in his shoulders shifted, sharpened. He listened in silence for a moment, the muscle in his jaw flexing as he stared straight ahead. "Are you sure about it?" he asked finally, his tone firm, clipped. A pause, then he nodded once. "All right, Jonathan, I'll be there." He hung up and let the phone drop to his lap with a soft thud. "I'll have to go out of the country for a day," he said, glancing at me. I just nodded. My head was still spinning with everything, the reporters, the embryo swap, the ultrasound, the baby. But then his next words made my heartbeat trip over itself. "I found out where your ex is hiding. Nathan." His name alone was like a punch to the chest. I felt it, sharp and cold, a memory clawing up my spine. He wasn't someone I ever wanted to cross paths with again, let alone hear about. My fingers curled tightly into my lap. I swallowed hard. Is he the one behind everything?" Colton's voice came steady, solid. "Yes, with the help of his father," My breath caught. Why? I whispered. Is it because he thinks I broke up with him over you? That's what I'm going to find out, Colton said. His voice softened a fraction as he looked at me. And Ava, I'm sorry for not telling you about the embryo swap immediately. I stared out the windshield for a long second before answering quietly. I understand. But it's still shocking to know I'm carrying a child I have no idea belongs to. My fingers slid over my belly almost unconsciously. So where does this leave us? Colton didn't hesitate. It changes nothing, Ava. Nothing changes between us. His hand lifted slowly, hesitantly, as if he feared I'd flinch away. I didn't. I let him cup my face, his palm warm and steady against my skin. His eyes searched mine for something, permission maybe, and when he found it, he leaned forward and kissed me softly. It wasn't desperate. It wasn't rushed. It was steady, a promise that spoke louder than words. When he finally pulled back, his thumb brushed against my cheek. Will you be all right the day I'm gone? I nodded, my voice softer than I intended. I'll be fine. You can invite your friend over if you want, he added, and a small smile curved his lips. That pulled a real smile out of me too. That'll be even great. He smiled wider at that, the sharp edges of his earlier tension easing just a little. Then, with one last glance at me, Colton turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, and the car rolled forward, taking us away from the hospital. Colton slowed the car to a stop outside Molly's place, the engine humming quietly in the cool air. I'd called her just a few minutes earlier, asking if she wanted to come over, and Molly had agreed without hesitation. Don't get out, he said, glancing at me as he scanned the quiet neighborhood through the windshield. If there are reporters lurking around, I don't want to give them another story to feed on. I nodded, still feeling the weight of everything pressing down on my chest. Moments later, the front door opened and Molly stepped out, her bright smile cutting through the dull weight in my chest like sunlight. She carried a big beige handbag, her steps quick and light as she practically skipped toward the car. She opened the back door and slid in, still smiling. Well, don't you two look like fugitives? She teased lightly, her tone deliberately soft, as if trying to lift the mood. Colton shook his head, but I could see the faintest tug at the corner of his lips. Without a word, he pulled the car back onto the road, heading straight toward the house. Molly leaned over the back seat toward me, lowering her voice. I brought snacks, lots of them actually, she whispered excitedly, as if we were about to have a sleepover instead of dealing with a media storm and a scheming witch. Also, 2 tubs of ice cream. We're doing this right. Her energy was contagious, and despite the tight knot in my chest, a small laugh escaped me. Of course you did. The drive felt longer than usual. Every turn and stretch of road weighted with thoughts I couldn't quite silence. But finally, the mansion came into view, tall and elegant against the late afternoon sky. The moment we parked, Colton stepped out, jogged upstairs, and returned after a few minutes. His presence always filled the room with something steady, strong. He leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead, his hand lingering on my cheek. Call me if anything happens, he said firmly, his eyes locking on mine as if making me promise. I will, I whispered. He gave a short nod, then straightened, turning and heading out with that confident stride that made the world bend around him. The sound of the door closing echoed softly behind him. I glanced around the foyer, the silence of the house wrapping around me like a cloak. Something felt off. Looking for her? Margaret's voice came from behind me. I turned to see her coming out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. I nodded slightly, though I hadn't said a word. That witch stepped out just as you and Mr. Colton left, Margaret said flatly, her eyes narrowing just a little, as if she shared the same suspicion curling through my gut. I pressed my lips together and nodded. I figured. Wherever Vivian had gone, I knew it wasn't something good. She always had a move waiting to be played. So, Molly stepped up beside me, tilting her head with a curious grin. Where should we talk that feels safe and free of evil lurking? I let out a quiet laugh and nodded upstairs. Come on. We climbed the staircase together, and I led her to my room, a space that had started feeling less like just a guest room and more like mine. As the door clicked softly behind us, a little bit of the tension eased from my shoulders. Up here, away from Vivian's smug smiles and the outside chaos, it almost felt like I could breathe. We settled into my room with mugs of hot cocoa that Margaret had sent up. Molly sprawled on the bed like she owned the place, kicking off her shoes with a sigh of relief, while I perched on the edge, still feeling the weight of everything pressing on my chest. But just as I thought she'd start rambling about ice cream and drama-free plans to distract me, Molly's expression shifted. She reached for her bag, pulled out her phone and turned the screen toward me. "Ava," she said quietly, all traces of humour gone. "Have you seen this?" On the screen was a video. The video. The same reporters who had ambushed us at the hospital. Their voices were sharp and hungry, overlapping as they screamed questions at Colton. Questions about the embryo, about the pregnancy, about me. I stared at the footage, my stomach twisting tighter with every second. The sight of Colton shielding me from the chaos only made the words cut deeper. About your late sister's surrogate carrying a child that isn't hers. What do you have to say about the doctors swapping embryos? Who's the father of the baby? My fingers felt numb as I handed the phone back to Molly. My throat burned, and for a second, I thought I might actually throw up. "Ava." Molly's voice was soft but trembling. "What is happening? Is this—" She hesitated, swallowing hard. "Is this true?" I looked down at my hands, my nails digging into my palms. Lying to her wasn't an option. Molly was more than a friend. She was the only piece of normal I had left. "Yes," I whispered. "It's true. The embryo was swapped, and Colton found out, but he was still trying to trace who's behind it before telling me, and now he went to face Nathan because he believes he and his father are the ones behind his sister's death." Her reaction was instant. She sat up straight, eyes wide, hand flying to her chest. "Oh my God, Ava! Oh my God!" I gave a weak, bitter laugh. "Yeah, welcome to my nightmare." Molly's expression shifted from shock to something darker, a mix of anger and fear. "Do you think—" she started, then hesitated, her eyes darting away like she wasn't sure if she should say it. She bit her lip, voice low. Could it be possible that Nathan was really behind Colton's sister's death? And— She trailed off again, but I didn't look away this time. "Molly, and what?" I pressed. Her chest rose with a shaky breath. "And could Nathan be the one behind the embryo transfer? And—" her voice cracked slightly— "the father of the child you're carrying?"
I've been strong for too long, smiling through the cracks in me. Told the world I'm fine, but no one ever stays to see. I'm drowning in quiet, screaming when no one can hear. But when I reach for you, will you be there, my dear? Like a burden, giving more than I had to give. But every kiss I gave away taught me how you're the one I need to live. My heart's been bruised by promises that faded like the setting sun. But if I hand you all of me, will you be the one? Will you hold me when I break? Love me through my darkest ache? you choose me every day, even when the light starts to fade. Will you stay when silence screams, when hope is lost inside my dreams?